you so much for joining us. So 15 acquisitions last year. You spent 1.9 billion rand on acquisitions. If I'm correct, this is the first major acquisition going forward into the new year when we're talking about results. So tell us a little bit more about RTT Sciences. Is this a new area for you, or is this complementing the group?
Thanks, Samantha. Yes, we've indicated that we're going to be putting more emphasis on our expansion in Africa. And RTT Health Sciences is active, very well established across the continent in East Africa and West Africa and also in Southern Africa. And the particular area that's of interest to us is the consumer side of things and the growing consumer base in Africa. And as the GDPs and GDP per capita of countries across the continent grow, we think there's a lot of growth there, and there's a lot of growth for logistics and supply chain service companies like ourselves. And yes, that's the space which RTT specifically plays in, is in pharmaceutical supply chain solutions and pharmaceutical logistics. So
is this quite a high margin business that you've bought into, or why the rationale behind the healthcare sector or pharmaceutical sector specifically?
Well, firstly, the rationale is behind the consumer sector, and then the healthcare sector and pharmaceuticals is you can provide more value-added services in this area. It generally is an area, because of higher barriers to entry and more difficult supply chains and a lot more legislation and governance around it. You do find that it's a good area, a good space to play in, and it's a very difficult space for smaller players to actually replicate a well-established business like this.
Barriers to entry, as you said, it keeps margins, I assume, higher.
Yes.
Yeah, and let's talk about Africa, because Africa right now is accounting for around 5% of your earnings. You're looking to double that. Does this acquisition have a material impact on the Imperial Group?
Yes, it has a material impact on our African business and the size of our business in Africa, and but we need to continue doing acquisitions of this nature in particular niches in the African expansion, and over time we'll be able to get to our objective of doubling that business.
Yeah. Just want to ask you, Hubert, what about the remainder of RTT? It's a strong brand, and presumably what remains is in strong competition with what your logistics division does. Were you not interested, or was it not for sale from owner Actis and company?
No, this was the part of the business that was available and for sale, and it was a particular area that was of great interest to us because of its strong positioning in Africa and exposure to the pharmaceutical sector. So this is what we went for. Unfortunately, we could be successful.
Because it's a fairly small purchase price, 500 million. It's just over 1% of your market cap, so it's really insignificant. So at this stage, probably a very limited impact on your earnings. But if you look at your margins for the South African logistics business, I think just over 6%. Will it have any impact in, say, in a year's time on your margins for that business?
We believe it's a transaction that will be earnings enhancing to the group, going forward. It's we've got certain particular acquisition criteria that we apply when we acquire a business, and it needs to achieve our return on invested capital objectives, needs to achieve certain margin objectives and certain objectives around being earnings enhancing, and it ticks those blocks.
Let's talk about the sectors because you talk about the consumer sector, and you talk about how RTT plays into that story overall. Are there any other sectors that you're looking to get more exposure to? For example, the Lankering, was more exposure to the chemical sector, which you say is quite defensive in Europe. So in the African space, where are the sectors where you feel you're underrepresented or you'd like to boost your presence?
Yes, the Lankering transaction was in a defensive area, just like pharmaceuticals and healthcare products are in a defensive area. So it's the same theme in principle that we've done in Europe with Lankering and here. So definitely the consumer side. Some time ago on the consumer side we did the transaction acquiring CIC,
which is the warehousing aspect of everything.
Yes, it's a distribution business where the business actually takes primary ownership of goods and distributes it on behalf of many principals. So again, it was playing into the consumer side of things. So that's our main area of interest. But also we are a general logistics business, so we would also be acquiring particular line haul and long distance logistics businesses on the important routes across the continent to make sure that our network works and is well established.
Last time I spoke to you, you said you were looking at some opportunities in Nigeria. Are you looking to bed anything down there, and specifically what type of opportunities?
Well, this business is established in Nigeria. It distributes pharmaceuticals in Nigeria, and then in the consumer area in Nigeria, we're working with some of our business partners, which are our partners in South Africa as well, and looking at opportunities there, and we think that'll be good.
Yeah.
So we've spoken at length about logistics. So of course, you've got two other business divisions, including distribution, the car dealership business, and I'd hate to be in that business right now, but you've got two wonderful brands, South Korean brands, that are performing rather strongly in the South African market. Are you experiencing it as a defensive brand?
The car industry in South Africa continues to be strong. You know, there's good momentum in the car industry because of generally record low interest rates, and banks being willing to finance vehicle purchases. And then the Korean brands that we represent are very good brands because it really has the type of vehicles that people want now. You know, these are modern vehicles with the right specifications, and very, very competitive in the local market.
It's your business, so you would know that it's doing rather well, and NAAMSA keeps reassuring us that the car sales numbers are looking rather well, but we do know it's tapering off, and as we suspect next year will be a far tougher year. Are you concerned about that?
The recent couple of months where the market have grown by 10%, I believe that's still strong, and we've also indicated that the rate of growth may decline, so we think the car market as a whole could be maybe 6 to 8% up over the next 12 months.
Hubert, thank you very much.